Well, hey there, and welcome to another video. In today's video, we will be painting a little spring bunny sniffing a little flower. And I thought that would be a really fun little illustration to do for this time of year. I will be listing the supplies in the description. They did pop up there. I'm using Grumbacher Academy paints, which is a student grade paint. I am also going to be using Cezanne Watercolor Pencils just a little bit. And the paper that I'm using today is a mixed media watercolor paper. I actually really love this paper, and I'll talk more about that later as we go. Right now, I'm just looking at a reference photo. I have a couple of reference photos pulled up when I did this painting, and just looking at the shapes of the rabbit and just getting those down with the watercolor paint. One of the things that I'm going to be talking about in this painting, and you'll see here in just a minute, is using a technique called lifting to pull paint out, either just to lighten an area up, or maybe like I'm about to do here, I'm making this rabbit foot entirely too long, and I'm going to need to go back through and lift that paint out to correct what I did there. And so yeah, that's just one of the techniques. You just get a brush, and usually I use a dry brush first, pick up the wet paint, and then go back in with some fresh clean water and then pick it up again. But you'll see that here in just a minute. So just going in through there and filling in his little body, and also using lifting right there just to lighten that area up, and doing some shape correcting. Just putting in a little very loose flower. A little bit about these Grumbacher Academy paints. They are a student grade paint, and I actually found them on clearance at Michael's a couple of years ago, and I think I might have used them twice now, maybe 3 times. And I pulled them out to do this little painting just to see if I wanted to keep them or if I wanted to pass them on to a grandchild or someone else that maybe wanted to try watercolor. The jury is still out, even after this painting. I'm not sure. I do have a lot of other better quality paints that I enjoy using, but yeah, we'll see. So right here, I'm adding even more paint to that area, and I think this is when it hits me that yeah, something's not quite right here. And I will start the lifting process, pulling out that paint that I just laid down with my brush, cleaning my brush, and here I'm getting a completely different brush and kind of scrubbing that paint out of there. And that just lifts the color out, and now I'm going to get just a little piece of paper towel and blot the extra water out. Now I'm going to let that dry just a little bit before I go back in there and redo his foot. Otherwise, the paint will bleed out all into that wet area. I do enjoy using this handmade watercolor paper. One of the hobbies that I've had in the past is paper making. I used to make a lot of soap. I still actually make handmade soap, but I would make the paper that would wrap the soap. And I also make it now, and I just use inks on it. It's not watercolor paper, so it doesn't behave like watercolor paper, but it is fun to paint on. It has a rougher texture, and I do enjoy the texture that the rougher paper gives your painting. Just going through and adding a little greenery. I will list the colors I used of the paint in the description. Okay, so now I am busting out some Cezanne watercolor pencils. I don't have a whole lot to say about these pencils. I've used them a few times, and I think it has more to do with the fact that I'm just not a watercolor pencil person. And yeah, I'm just using it to add some color in, and I'm going to go back with a brush and just kind of blend that out. I go through stages. I enjoy doing pencils for a while, acrylics, pastels, but I always circle back around to watercolor and generally spend the majority of my time doing that. Just adding in some shadows with the pencils. One of the things I did notice about the Grumbacher paint is that, and I'm not sure, I need to try again, I need to give it a little more, work through it a little bit more. It doesn't seem to fade as much as the Turner watercolors that I've been using once they dry. You'll see here in a minute, they don't seem to fade as much once they've dried. Okay, just working with the texture of this paper and getting some texture on my bunny. I do love this paper. Just the texture that it gives the work that you've done. I've done a lot on this type of paper. And the one thing I don't like about this paper is that it does not handle a lot of layering. And if you have to scrub some of that paint off, you will pull up some of the paper. So that's just one thing you have to be aware of when you use this particular paper. I let it dry, and you see that it actually did not fade very much. Again, I don't know if that is the paper or the paint. I need to do a few more pieces with this and just see what is actually happening there. This brings me to working through the ugly middle of a painting. Anyone who paints knows you get to this point and you're like, what have I done here? Like, this is not right. This is messed up. And you just kind of have to push through that period where things are not really what you wanted them to be. Just push through, make some corrections where you can, but try not to overwork it. It's just one of those things that happens with painting. And if we just push through, a lot of the time you'll end up with something that you actually enjoy. It's also an opportunity to learn when you push through these periods. What works, what doesn't work. Again, just going through and adding some shadows under his neck and in his ears. I'm I'm going in with the Cezanne Watercolor Pencil and just getting in his little eye in there. And I'm gonna get his nose and some shadowing inside his ear. Okay, again, I'll let that dry, and then the colors do not fade a whole lot. I actually really like that. What I did not show you, and I took out of the clip, was this is actually the third white pen that I tried to get some white accents in there. The first one I tried was a Uniball Sigma that had dried up, and then I tried a Sakura gel pen, and neither one of those worked. So I pulled this little white paint pen I had just to add a little bit of white here and there. The other difficult area I had with this painting, other than the foot that I made too long, was the ear. I don't know that I ever really was satisfied with what I did here, but tried to make it to where it was sitting correctly on his head. And it's just one of those things. He was just holding his ears funny. What can you do? You could easily take this little illustration and stick it on the front of a card and, just make a greeting card for someone, or stick it in a little frame. Just all kinds of things. This paper just adds a little something to the illustration. So I'm just about finished here, and I'm going to blend in some of the pencil marks I just added. And I guess that's it. Thank you so much for joining me today, and hopefully you have some fun if you try this. Until next time, keep painting, keep practicing, keep having fun. See you later. Bye-bye.